Hello. Today we are reading chapter 13. It's called Deep Magic from the Dawn of Time. At the end of the last chapter, Peter killed the chief of police, that wolf named Chief Malgrim. So I think we're in for some action. Maybe. Something big might happen. Look at this picture. Who are these characters? Think about that. You know them. One's very obvious and one should be pretty obvious. Okay. Now we must get back to Edmund. When he had been made to walk far further than he had known anybody could walk, the witch at last halted in a dark valley all overshadowed with fir trees and yew trees. Edmund simply sank down and lay on his face, doing nothing at all, not even caring what was going to happen next, provided they would let him lie still. He was too tired to even notice how hungry and thirsty he was. The witch and the dwarf were talking close beside him in low tones. "No," said the dwarf, "it's no use now, O Queen. They must have reached the stone table by now." "Perhaps the wolf will smell us out and bring us news," said the witch. "It cannot be good news if he does," said the dwarf. "4 thrones in Cair Paravel," said the witch. "How, if only 3 were filled? That would not fulfill the prophecy." A prophecy is something that is predicted to happen. So the prophecy is that the 2 sons of Adam and the 2 daughters of Eve will sit on the thrones of Cair Paravel. She has one of them, so she's saying that maybe it can't happen. "What difference would it make now that he is here?" said the dwarf. He did not dare, not even now, mention the name of Aslan to his mistress. "He may not stay long, and then we would fall upon the 3 at Cair. Yet it might be better," said the dwarf, "to keep this one." Here he kicked Edmund, "for bargaining with." "Yes, and have him rescued," said the witch scornfully. "Then," said the dwarf, "we better do what we have to do at once." "I would like to have it done at the stone table itself," said the witch. "That is the proper place. That is where it's always been done before." "It will be a long time now before the stone table can be put again to its proper use," said the dwarf. "True," said the witch. "Then I will begin." At that moment, with a rush and a snarl, a wolf rushed up to him. "I have seen them. They are at the stone table with him. They have killed my captain, Malgrim. I was hidden in the thickets and saw it all. One of the sons of Adam killed him. Fly, fly!" "No," said the witch. "There need be no flying. Go quickly. Summon all of our people to meet me here as speedily as they can. Call out the giants and the werewolves and the spirits of the trees who are on our side. Call the ghouls and the bogles and the ogres and the minotaurs. Call the cruels, the hags, the spectres, the people of Toadstool. We will fight. What? Have I not still my wand? Will not their ranks turn to stone even as they come on? Be off quickly. I have a little thing to finish here while you are away." The great brute bowed his head, turned, and galloped away. "Now," she said, "we have no table. Let me see. Better put it against the trunk of the tree." Edmund found himself being forced to his feet. Then the dwarf set him with his back against the tree and bound him fast. He saw the witch take off her outer mantle. So he's being tied to the tree and she's taking off her jacket, her big coat. Her arms were bare underneath it and terribly white. Because they were so very white he could see them, but not much else. It was so dark in the valley under the dark trees. "Prepare the victim," said the witch, and the dwarf undid Edmund's collar and folded back his shirt at the neck. Then he took Edmund's hair and pulled his head back so that he had to raise his chin. After that Edmund heard a strange noise, whiz, whiz, whiz. After a moment he couldn't think what it was. Then he realized it was the sound of a knife being sharpened. At that very moment he heard loud shouts from every direction, a drumming of hoofs and a beating of wings, a scream of the witch, confusion all around him. And then he found he was being untied. Strong arms were around him, and he heard big, kind voices saying things like, "Let him lie down, give him some wine, drink this, steadily now, you'll be all right in a minute." Then he heard voices of people who were not talking to him, but to one another. Then they were saying things like, "Who's got the witch? I thought you had her. I didn't see after I knocked the knife out of her hand. I was after the dwarf. So you mean to say she's escaped? Can't a chap mind everything at once? What's that? Oh, sorry, it's only an old stump." But just at that point Edmund went off in a dead faint. Presently the centaurs and the unicorns and the deer and the birds, they were of course the rescue party which Aslan had sent in the last chapter, all set off to go back to the stone table, carrying Edmund with them. But if they could have seen what happened in the valley after they'd gone, I think they might have been surprised. So remember, Edmund just described it as like he can only see her arms because she's so bright white. and everything else is dark, so he couldn't really see what happened, and so the rescue party couldn't really see either. It was perfectly still, and presently the moon grew bright. If you had been there, you would have seen the moonlight shining on an old tree stump and a fair-sized boulder. If you had gone on looking, you would gradually have begun to think there was something odd about both the stump and the boulder. Next, you would have thought that the stump did look really remarkably like a little fat man crouching on the ground. If you had watched long enough, you would have seen that the stump would walk across to the boulder, and the boulder sit up and began talking to the stump. For in reality, the stump and the boulder were simply the witch and the dwarf, for it was part of her magic that she could make things look like that what they weren't. And she had the presence of mind to do this at the very moment when the knife was knocked out of her hand. She had kept hold of her wand, so that had been kept safe too. When the other children woke up the next morning, they had been sleeping on piles of cushions in the pavilion. The first thing they heard from Mrs. Beaver was that their brother had been rescued and brought into the camp last night. It was at this moment with Aslan. As soon as they had breakfast, they all went out, and there they saw Aslan and Edmund walking together in the dewy grass, apart from the rest of the court. There was no need to tell you, and no one ever heard what Aslan was saying, but it was a conversation which Edmund never forgot. As the others drew near, Aslan turned to meet them, bringing Edmund with him. Pause. Here is your brother, he said, and there is no need to talk about what has passed. Edmund shook hands with each of the others and said to them in turn, I'm sorry, and everyone said, that's all right. And then everyone wanted very hard to say something which would make it clear that they were all friends with him again, something ordinary and natural, and of course no one could think of anything in the world to say. But before they had time to feel really awkward, one of the leopards approached Aslan and said, Sire, there is a messenger from the enemy who craves audience. Let him approach, said Aslan. The leopard went away, and soon returned, leading the witch's dwarf. What is your message, son of Earth? Said Aslan. The Queen of Narnia, and Empress of the Lone Islands, desires a safe conduct to come and speak with you, said the dwarf, on the matter of which is much to your advantage as to hers. The Queen of Narnia, indeed, said Mr. Beaver. Of all the cheek. Peace, Beaver, said Aslan. All names will soon be restored to their proper owners. In the meantime, we would not dispute about them. Tell your mistress, son of Earth, that I grant her safe conduct on the condition that she leaves her wand beyond that tree. This was agreed to, and the two leopards went back with the dwarf to see that the conditions were properly carried out, meaning that she actually leaves her wand back there. But supposing she turns the two leopards into stone, whispered Lucy to Peter. I think the same idea occurred to the leopards themselves. At any rate, as they walked off with their fur all standing up on their backs and their tails were bristling, like a cat when they see a strange dog. So, like the leopards are scared to go off and walk towards the witch. A few minutes later, the witch herself walked out on top of the hill and came straight across and stood before Aslan. The three children who had not seen her before felt shudders running down their backs at the sight of her face, and there were low growls among the animals that were present. Though it was bright sunshine, everyone felt suddenly cold, and the only two people present who seemed quite at ease were Aslan and the witch herself. It was the oddest thing to see those two faces, the golden face and the dead white face, so close together. Not that the witch looked Aslan exactly in the eyes. Mrs. Beaver particularly noticed this. You have a traitor there, Aslan, said the witch. Of course, everyone present knew that she meant Edmund, but Edmund had got past thinking about himself after all he had been through and after all the talk he had that morning. He just went on looking at Aslan. It didn't seem to matter what the witch said. Well, said Aslan, his offense was not against you. Have you forgotten the deep magic? Asked the witch. Let us say I have forgotten it, said Aslan gravely. Tell us of this deep magic. Tell you, said the witch, her voice growing suddenly shriller. Tell you what is written on the very table of stone that stands beside us. Tell you what is written in deep letters as a spear is long on the firestones of the secret hill. Tell you what is engraved on the scepter of the emperor beyond the sea. You at least know the magic which the emperor put into Narnia at the very beginning. You know that every traitor belongs to me as lawful prey, and for every treachery I have the right to a kill. Oh, said Beaver. Oh, that's how you came to imagine yourself as queen, because you were the emperor's hangman. I see. Peace, Beaver, said Aslan in a very low growl. And so, continued the witch, that human creature is mine. His life is forfeit to me. His blood is my property. Come and take it then, said the bull with the man's head in a great bellowing voice. Fool, said the witch with a savage smile, almost as a snarl. Do you really think your master can rob me of my rights by mere force? He knows the deep magic better than that. He knows that unless I have blood, the law says all Narnia will be overturned and perish in fire and water. It is very true, said Aslan. I do not deny it. Oh, Aslan, whispered Susan in the lion's ear. Can't we? I mean, won't you? Will you? Can't we do something about the deep magic? Isn't there something that will work against it? Work against the Emperor's magic, said Aslan, turning to her with something like a frown on his face, but nobody ever made that suggestion to him again. Edmund was on the other side of Aslan, looking all the time in Aslan's face. He felt a choking feeling and wondering how he might say something, but a moment later he felt he was not expected to do anything except for wait and do what he was told. Fall back, all of you, said Aslan. I will talk to the witch alone. They all obeyed. It was a terrible time, this, waiting and wondering what the lion and the witch talked earnestly together in low voices. Lucy said, Oh, Edmund, and began to cry. Peter stood with his back to the others out at the distant sea. The beavers stood holding each other's paws with their heads bowed. The centaurs stamped uneasily with their hoofs, but everyone became perfectly still at the end, so that you noticed even the small sounds of like a bumblebee flying past, or the birds in the forest below them, or the wind whistling, rustling in the leaves. And still the talk between Aslan and the witch went on. At last they heard Aslan's voice. You can all come back, he said. I've settled the matter. She's renounced her claim on your brother's blood. And all over the hill there was a noise, if everyone had been holding their breath and now began breathing again. And then there was a murmur of talk. The witch was turning away with a fierce look of joy on her face, but stopped and said, But how will I know this promise will be kept? I'm not going to do this noise, which is why I'm going to show you the video. But this is what Aslan says something. Roared Aslan, half rising from his throne. His great mouth opened wider and wider, and the roar grew louder and louder, and the witch, after staring in a moment with her lips wide apart, picked up her skirts and fairly ran for her life. Okay, I'm going to turn the computer and you're going to see this last part. This is from the actual movie.
Ulster claim on the son of Adam's blood.
That was it. I guess I don't think it was that loud, but when you watch it in the movies, it's really amazing. Like it's just so loud. Come on, stop. Stop. Okay. So something's happened. She's not going to take Edmund anymore, but maybe you can make a prediction about what might happen. Let's see. All right, I'm going to make a questions video now. Bye.